Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson, and we have Jessica back on the podcast. It's been a little over 2 years since we last had her on. She has got done competing at the Atlanta Pro, and yeah, we're just going to give us an update on what she's been up to and just discuss all things health and fitness, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Jessica, thank you so much for coming back on.
Hey Ryan, thanks for having me.
Well, I haven't asked this question in a long time, actually, for a lot of people. What is the weather like today? Just because I'm curious.
So here in Virginia, it is overcast and it's been sprinkling on and off, but it's not too hot here. It's probably about maybe 85.
Yeah, that's hot. But that's hot at least up here. I mean, we're getting in the 90s sometimes here, and we just have had so much rain in the past few months that we've had flooding all over the suburbs around where I live, but luckily not really in my area per se. But like, there's an amusement park that was flooded. Like we had a dam that broke where I went to college, which was like an hour south. But yeah, it's been getting interesting. But luckily, the flooding has receded. But yeah, it got really close. It was close to a point where it was like a foot away from like all of a sudden like almost everything that I was nearby would get like people were preparing sandbags and everything. But luckily, that did not come to pass. But I mean, you just got done at the Atlanta. What was that experience like?
Oh, it's so cool. The first, when I went to check-ins, of course, walked in and saw this room full of pros, and everyone is just, I recognized a lot of faces from, Instagram, things like that. It was really cool. And then, as I'm leaving, uh, Linda Murray's walking up the hall, and I got to talk to her and meet her and show her love, and that was wild. Got a picture, and she's just quite a lady, and very warm and absolutely stunning in person and just so sweet. So that was a great way to kick it off. And I met a lot of the of course the WPD pros, and the women are so cool. You know, you think when you're at a competition, like everyone's kind of going to be like, I don't know, just real like, competitive with each other. And it wasn't the case at all. Everyone was super supportive backstage. Like there are just some really seasoned pros back there posing, and they're just so eloquent, and these classic posers, and I loved watching them. And everyone's so cool with that, just like kind of doing their thing, and you just watch, and it's like it's just cool. And I was getting advice from other athletes. I had so much fun. I feel like I made new friends. I feel like at other shows, like when I go to other shows, like I'm gonna, see some of these girls again, and it's just gonna be like, I don't know, just like a community that I really enjoy being a part of.
We were talking before about a certain competitor, and I won't mention names. So you said, "Oh yeah, they're actually a little bit like smaller and more compact in person." But has there ever been the opposite, where you meet a competitor and you're like, "Okay, you are much bigger than I anticipated that you would be"?
No, I think that, I giggle to myself all the time because I feel like everyone assumes that female bodybuilders are these huge people. And, I'm walking around backstage, and everyone's just, they're just compact. Yeah, we've got big muscles, and all of our body parts are very, you know, big in comparison to maybe the person standing next to us who's average, right? But at the same time, we're very compact, we're very lean. So we're smaller actually than most people. Granted, there's some big ass backs. Like their backs backstage that I would say, I wouldn't say that I saw anyone that I was shocked to see how big their backs were, but that I was impressed. I would just stand behind folks and be like, wow, that's impressive.
There's been one guest that I've had that I've actually met in person that I was impressed by, and it's because she's 5 feet tall and she looks like tiny-ish on Instagram. I won't mention her name because I know she doesn't like me bragging about her or anything like that, but she's an older person. I'll leave it at that. But like, yeah, I met her in person actually last weekend at the TCO show, and my first thought on her was like, You were very deceptive on Instagram, so I made a whole joke about that, but I'm also being, 6'3". I took a photo with her that I'm gonna post probably sometime in the next coming weeks where I just literally had my arm resting on her head basically as we were taking a photo. Just because I find that hilarious that they are just when you meet them in person, you're like, God, they're a lot shorter than you'd expect. So whoever does the angles, at least for Instagram, they're doing the right job. But since we last talked over 2 years, what do you think is one area of your physique that you've improved on the most?
My back, my back. And now I intentionally have been training my back hard for since my last show because it's always been my weakest point. I train my back twice a week, and I've really just been focusing on mind muscle connection and really trying hard to build up the thickness and the width and also my lats. It's always been an area that in comparison to the other athletes, it isn't quite as strong and it's not as seasoned. Ryan, I did my first competition when I was 40, right? So like I'm coming into the game later. I'm trying to play catch up in a lot of areas. And that is definitely one of them. And when I look at the progress between my back from Charleston 2 years ago and this show, it is so cool to see because there's thickness, there's width, um, and I'm really proud of that. And I had a time in there where I had surgery on both of my hands at the same time, so I wasn't able to train for a little bit. So I was worried about losing some progress and losing some size, but that didn't really hinder it too much because of course, it is 2 years, so there is still progress in there that was being made. So yeah, the back is definitely um, one of the main areas, but you know.
Well, walking back a little bit, I normally hear people maybe having surgery on one hand. How'd you have surgery on both hands?
So I ended up having like a carpal tunnel flare up so bad that I had to have surgery because I ended up having 3 rounds of cortisone shots, and the doc was like, "Okay, that's it. You've got to have surgery or deal with it." And so the way that they normally do it is they operate on one hand at a time. And me being an athlete, Um, I'm like, I know you guys do two hands at the same time. I hear you guys do this for the athletes at UVA because the University of Virginia's here. I talked to the surgeon that works on the athletes at UVA, and he said he'd do both hands for me. Um, and I basically was like, let me go ahead and do both hands at the same time. They'll heal quicker. I'll be back, in business faster. Um, I had no idea how hard it was gonna be to do 2 hands at the same time. Now, in my mind, I was like, "If I do one, I'm never going back for the second one." Like, I knew that I was gonna run, right? So I went ahead and just bit the bullet and did it. It was really hard. I don't know that I would recommend it to anybody else, though.
You want to hear the most pathetic reason ever that I got carpal tunnel as a teenager?
Yeah, no, I don't know about that.
Guitar Hero.
Oh my god, Ryan.
Mhm.
And were you good at it, at least?
Yes, I was
Okay.
very good at it, and luckily, we managed to heal it up right before baseball season started, so luckily, it happened, like, right between the end of basketball season and the start of baseball season, so I had, like, a 2-month span where it was literally probably, like, the first week that I had off of basketball, I heard it, and then, like, within 2 months, I was able to get it where it wasn't I didn't have to have, like, surgery or anything like that, but, like, I had to wear, like, that stupid wrist thing that you sometimes have to wear. I had to wear that for a couple weeks, but luckily, it all got better, but hey, that's a badge of honor right there. Not too many people can say that they got it. I mean, I do remember there was a professional baseball player one time that got carpal tunnel, and he had to sit out a year because he was playing Guitar Hero too much on the season. So there is that. But yeah, again, it was Guitar Hero. Everyone, for anyone that maybe is younger than me who doesn't understand how huge that was, just watch a video about it. It was definitely a big thing. But you mentioned your back is the one thing that grew the most. What's one back exercise that you can't live without?
Goodness, all of them though. I mean, I I've gotta say, like, rows, really, like, any type of row, but it's everything. Like, I have to hit every area of my back. And when every time I train my back, I have to make sure that I feel something in every area of my back before I leave the gym. And what I always do when I finish before I leave is I like to do back extensions, and I just like really, finish with that lower back. And as soon as I'm done with that lower back and my entire back feels like I got a solid workout, then I'm ready hobble out of the gym.
Well, and you were featured in a news segment. How did that come to be, and what was that like?
So it's really cool. The local news around here, year and a half ago, so 2 years ago when we did our podcast, um, a local magazine here did an article on me here, and then after that, the local news did a segment on me and just talked about me winning my pro card and so forth. And then Marty Hudloff is the sportscaster, and he's followed me kind of through my journey and wanted to um, kind of follow up with me when I was in prep for my first show. And so basically I was like, "Hey Marty, I'm in prep for my first show, just wanted to give you a heads up." And so that's how that came about. And so we went ahead and met up at the gym, and he got some footage of me posing and training. Um, and he put that on the news, and he did a really great job. It turned out really nice. I could never figure out how to get the actual news clip posted on Instagram, but I got it posted on Facebook. It turned out really nice.
Well, thankfully, he has that modern news equipment, whereas I just have this laptop of mine. So again, if I ever had that, look out, Marty. But no, I'm just kidding. But
I know, right?
it's great that because I have had other guests too that even this year alone have been featured in news stories as well. So I'm glad they're getting it out there at least a little bit more in the public and making it a little bit more knowledgeable. But have you changed up your posing routine at all in the last few years? Because you mentioned that you did some posing stuff for
Yes.
him. How has that changed up?
So this past prep, I worked with Christina Mendoza on my posing, and she's fantastic. Her and her husband have K&J Center Stage, and they do posing, for their clients and stuff. And honestly, me and Christina worked on, what poses work best with my physique. I mean, I was rusty, and also right at the time that I won my pro card, I was a figure W women's physique crossover. Like literally, I went from figure to women's physique and won my pro card. So I didn't have a lot of posing experience. And so then I take 2 years off, and there was really no posing going on. So I come back and I start posing, and I'm like, whoa, I really need some work. So got in touch with Christina, and she's an incredible poser, and she helped me work on that. And I really spent a lot of time this prep working on my posing conditioning, and then she put together a routine for my finals, and I just felt really good about that. It's just always a work in progress, though. When I got backstage at the pro show and saw these these pros posing, I'm like, gosh, they have been doing this for years, and they're just phenomenal. Like this, I'm not at that level, and um, got a long way to go. But it's cool to watch them do it for sure. But it just takes a lot of work, a lot of practice, and all you can do is just keep working on it. You can't just sit back and you know magically expect it to happen. So, but yeah, I've definitely started putting a lot more time into it, because here's the way I look at it, Ryan. I'm now as an IFBB pro, like anytime that I hit that pro stage, I'm paying my respects. Like I'm honoring the other athletes. I'm honoring that stage. I'm honoring the judges. I'm honoring the opportunity. Like I'm taking this seriously. So, I'm going to bring my best every time, and that's basically the way that I'm approaching each show, um and it's making it a lot more fun for me.
One of the things that we were talking about a lot when we talked on Instagram was, first of all, how hungry you were. So, what was your go-to meal that you had after Atlanta?
It's so funny because
And by the way, everyone, I was torturing her by sending her like photos of cupcakes and stuff like that because I had to get that dig in.
Ryan is such a he was definitely not kind when it came to teasing me about
Hey, when
food.
you have a body that looks like that, I can tease you because you've won a lot. You've won in life. So like, let's be honest. I need to get my digs in at least to even the playing field, maybe a little bit. It's still going to be in your favor enormously, but I gotta at least still make myself feel better a little bit.
Yeah, well, it was funny. I'll give you that much. It made me laugh when I was struggling a little bit. Honestly, I went for a burger and fries. No, let me here's what I did. My first stop when I left the show, I found this place called Sugar Shane's in Atlanta. It's this little place in a like kind of like a garage, and like made these gourmet cookies and desserts, and I went in there and it was in heaven. I said, "Okay, go ahead and get a big box. I'll take one of those. I'll take one of those. I'll take one of those." And I left with this big box of just, you know, heart attack in a box type treats. And then of course, I went out and, got my burger and fries, and nothing really tasted as good as I expected. I wanted it to so bad because I fantasized about it so long, but fortunately, nothing tasted as good as I expected. And then ever since, I've been, wanting to just pig out, and I have pigged out, but nothing has been as good as I wanted it to be. So whatever. Now it's back to being healthy and
Yep.
good again.
Was this prep easier or harder than other preps you've done in the past? You think?
This has been the best prep I've ever had. I was ready for it. I came into this prep with the mindset that, you know what, I'm choosing to do this. This is the lifestyle that I live. I'm looking forward to, doing this, pro debut and being a part of this. I'm gonna work my ass off, and here we go. And I've had a lot of challenging things going on in my life, and I'm a single mom. I have two teenage daughters. My
Good
oldest,
luck with that.
it's been challenging. My oldest, I'm putting her through college right now. This is her first year of college. My youngest is about to turn 16. We've got a lot going on. And I've been doing prep, and of course I work a full-time job as well, but I've been doing prep alongside of it, and it's just flowed. Like it worked. I I've said a few times that this has been the best prep I've ever had. And one of the main reasons is because I didn't have any kind of mental breakdowns. There was no like,
Yet.
yeah, but the prep is all for that show. We'll just keep that in its own little bucket. We survived without having any major mental breakdowns.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, so far. Yeah, but sometimes there's a lot of like freak out moments and, you know, struggles like mentally there. And it's almost not worth doing if you can't handle it, mentally and emotionally, balance wise, life balance, because that's all part of it too. Um and I think that this prep just kind of made sense.
At what point in your prep do you look at yourself and think that you look the best? Because I know a lot of people were shocked, and I was shocked as well when I started asking this to a lot of guests, and a lot of people would. I mean, I don't even think I've ever got an answer from anyone that says I like my stage look less or the most. I think it looks the best when I'm on stage. But at what point in your prep is it before or after, like 4 weeks, or 4 weeks after, or like 6 weeks before? Do you look in the mirror and say like, you know what, this is where I personally think I look my best?
Mm, that's fun. That's an interesting question. I, because there are most of my prep is not my favorite look of me as far as feeling attractive, and that's the question you're asking, right?
Well, or the part that you're like, oh, this is a look that I could maintain, year round, and like this, if I had to live
Oh,
in this look, like I would be happy.
I would say now, to be honest, this prep I've been super, super lean the whole time. I maintained I was at 11% body fat at 8 weeks out. So I was already, kind of coming down quick. Um, but
I mean, she did have chest veins while driving. I commented on one of her Instagram stories too. So you were at that kind of lean where it was just like, okay, we're just whatever, I guess.
yeah, I mean, we were cruising pretty lean throughout the prep. I I would like to say that right now, right, like a week after the show, like right now that I'm a little like kind of holding a little water and a little softer, I'm kind of digging the like round, little softer edges, but still lean, still tight, still kind of muscular and everything else. Um, I'm not going to probably keep all of the thick muscle, on the off season, but one would like to hope.
What was the feedback that you got from the judges, or if you haven't got it yet, or
So the head judge came up to me after this show, and said, "You did great." It was cool. He's like, "You did really great. You look great. I can tell you're really conditioned, but we couldn't see that on stage." He said, whatever happened, you need to figure that out and keep that in mind." He's like, "We just couldn't see," and he's like, "I can tell your condition, but we couldn't see it on stage." I was like, "Shoot!" And then I saw the pictures, stage photos, and I was just like, "What happened?" Because I've got pictures on my phone from when I checked in with my coach, shredded, like my peeled. Like you can see diamonds in my glutes, you can see striations in my hamstrings, like veins everywhere. And like my coach said to me that morning, "This is the most peeled I've ever seen you look." And then on stage, I'm like, "What happened?" So, you know, I say, "Was it the stage lighting?" And then I'm like, "But everyone else had the same lighting." So it's kind of like I'm not going to make excuses. I don't really know what happened. I don't know if we overcarved. I don't know. I don't know what. It might have been that I wasn't holding my poses tight enough. So, because you are nervous. And every time I went out on stage, Ryan, it was like a whirlwind. Like, I don't even remember. Like, I remember walking off stage and thinking, what the heck did I just do? Like, did I even do what I was supposed to do? Because there's a lot going on and it is pretty overwhelming. So, that was the judge's feedback. Come in tighter. He said, "Come in tighter." So, that's the feedback. I think that the goal every time, you do a show like that is you look around and you see what the other girls look like, and then you look at what you look like. And I think you know the truth. And when I look at myself, I see, okay, this is what I brought, and this is what everyone else, is working with. So back to the drawing board. You know, everybody's you know, working their butts off. It's not like, when you're in your own little world and you're working hard and all this stuff and everyone else is just hanging out. People are killing it. And so, that it was great feedback from the judge and I really appreciated him coming up and giving it to me.
I mean, this being your pro debut, obviously, the competitors are bigger and there's other things, but were there any other specific like differences in between, a non-pro show and a pro show that you noticed when you were competing last weekend?
Um, it felt the actual like the prejudging and the comparisons felt different when we went out on stage, and how they had us line up and kind of do our mandatories. There were differences there, and I don't know if that was the difference between amateur. I mean the yeah, amateur and pro stage or not, but it definitely felt different. There was kind of more to it, with the mandatories and transitions. But, I had, a little bit of preparation for all that. It's just a whole different ball game when you're on stage next to different athletes and your arms are touching each other and your hands, that is challenging.
Give 'em a
When
little
you go,
shove, let them know that you're there.
oh my God, it's I'm like trying to do my front double and we're like forearms are bumping. I'm like, come on, man, give me some room.
That's why God gave you elbows, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I have found that too, where you see some of those old school shows where like the guys, especially with the guys, where like they purposely like try to get in front of each other and like just outpose them, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah. Well, you kind of have to make sure you're not like, um, you don't want to be rude and get into somebody else's space too much, but you also don't want to like let them
just
cover
like
you.
hunker down, yeah, and just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was interesting. Check-ins were totally different because you go to check-ins and you sit in this big room and then they call you out and you come up that's a kind of cool feeling because they already know who you are and things like that. Your name is up on the screen behind you when you go up. That's They call you out by name. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but I noticed the tattoo on your forearm and on your shoulder. If you don't mind, what are the stories behind those? I'm always fascinated by tattoos.
Okay, so I never got a tattoo until I turned 40. I got my first one, and it's this lotus flower on my rib cage, and I love it. That one was just kind of like symbolic of, you know, going through a bunch of stuff and coming through on the other side and, things like that. And I loved it. And I should have stopped there. But I didn't because I really, once you get a tattoo, whatever. Um, and so after that, um, my dad passed away. And once my dad passed away, that was like one of the hardest thing I've ever had to go through my entire life. I ended up getting a small angel wing, a small one. And then I ended up going back and having it covered with a bigger wing. And it was too light. So then
Talk about Miss Indecisive over here.
I was so bad. I should not be allowed to get tattoos because then I went back and had it colored, and then I went back and had more added to it.
You're putting the
And
ink guys kids through college, basically.
basically, and then I never liked it. I still don't even like it. I still don't even like it, and now it's huge, and there's nothing I can do about it. You can't get it removed at this point because the ink goes down to like the inside of my bones, probably. Okay, and so the forearm tattoo, I think this was a COVID tattoo. I was bored and I got this tattoo. It used to have a lion's face right here where this can you see the lily?
Yeah.
It used to have a lion's face, but every time I would turn my forearm, the lion's face would like look really silly. So I went and just had a lily put over. Yeah, so those are those tattoos. And I think there's one on my ankle and one on my back too.
There should be a sign at the tattoo shops near you where it just says "Don't let this woman in," and then like a picture of you or something like that. Just yeah,
Mugshot.
mugshot. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's. I've always been fascinated by them. I haven't gotten a tattoo myself, but who knows? I've always just. I just can't wait, especially with my generation where everyone is getting a lot more tattoos. I just want to see them when they turn like 70 and 80. Then what these people look like then with all these tattoos. That's gonna be
Well,
a fascinating sight to see.
but the thing is nobody cares when you're that old.
That's true. No, I'm not saying about like judging them. I'm just saying like I just want to know what that looks like when your skin is like that, and then you have all these tattoos. Because like the only people that we have reference for now are like Navy sailors who are like super old now and got tattoos like back in the day, really. But and those and the ones that they got were like only like a thing that you put on your arm. Basically, they weren't like no one ever got like a full sleeve or anything like that. So
Well, if I'm still around and on Instagram, I'll let you see.
oh god. So, I mean, just throughout this whole journey of yours, how have you been able to maintain, like you said, your full-time job, bodybuilding, being a mom? How are you able to do that without going absolutely crazy? Now, I know you said that there are some episodes which are, totally understandable. I'm shocked that that it wasn't like that every day, but how are you able to do all this?
So, I've gone through some ups and downs. To be completely honest, I've had some ups and downs like over the years, where I've lost it and I've completely, fallen off of, the sane train. Like the the thing that keeps me the most level and together is, I go to the gym, so it helps a lot. You know, it's it can life can be very challenging. Um, we all have our issues, we all have our problems, we all have our struggles. And, at the end of the day, we got to find what works for us to, kind of have our thing. And that's kind of what I teach my daughters too. Like, you have to have your thing that, like, helps you to get your mind off stuff or helps you to deal with, the day to day. Like, you just have to have your thing, find your thing. And the gym is my thing, and I take it to the extreme. And I'm not pushing bodybuilding on anyone. I just really enjoy being an athlete. And right now, I'm good at being a bodybuilder, and I'm going to pursue that, for as long as I care to. Um, and we'll see how long that is.
What kind of reactions do you get at the gym like right now when you have this look?
Um, it's funny because I get a lot of respect. Before I started, you know, before I kind of got to this level of bodybuilding, there would be, the typical, like, gym bro attention, like, oh, you're so hot. Now, gym bros come up to me and they're like, mad respect. I mean, I get, like, just all respect, no weird vibes. Like, it's a pretty cool feeling. So that's that. And from the girls, the same thing. I When I walk into the gym, I'm there to work out. I'm not there to socialize. So I'm not looking around to, see who's looking at me, to get attention, things like that. And typically I wear a huge shirt. And I'm not there to, like, show off. Um, but I will say that I don't ever feel like people are hating on me or anything like that. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Very welcome.
I mean, that's one thing that I noticed when I was doing, in person when I was filming some workouts for some competitors that I expected a little bit more to be like some mean mugs or anything like that. But I didn't see any of that, which I mean, trust me, I'm very happy that I saw that. But it was one of those things where, because I even remember in college, like 10 years ago when I first started, seeing, I saw some of that and I was like, okay, that's interesting. So it's nice to see how it's, gotten easier as the years have gone on. But what has that been like, since you started competing, just to see how this sport has evolved? Because that look that they wanted when you first started is a lot different than the look that they want now.
I don't know. I mean, I think that when it comes to the look that what I'm hearing the judges saying right now, it feels like they are really trying to maybe redefine where they are with how they're judging the divisions right now. Because I think that they're identifying, like, the fact that the way things are going, the trajectory is, if we keep going in this direction, we are pushing all of the girls into bigger, 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 bigger. And where are we going to end up? Like, it, you can only get so big. So we've got to kind of, like, rein it back in. And what is encouraging is, when I competed this past weekend, I expected women's physique girls to be huge. Not the case. There are girls backstage, tiny, 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 with all the shape, all of the criteria for women's physique, but small, you know, small physiques. So, it kind of goes back to, when women's physique got started. I'm not saying that that's the case at all the shows. I'm not saying that's the case for all the athletes. I'm just saying that there are a lot of women's physique athletes out there that aren't huge. Um, I saw women's bodybuilding, and these women are absolutely the women I saw backstage for bodybuilding, beautiful. They were, you know, all built just how I thought women's bodybuilding should be. So I feel like the divisions might be, um, the judges might be like pushing all the women into the right divisions right now. I hope. That's really what I've been hoping for the past couple years because for a while I kept thinking I would see women's physique girls winning a show, and I'm like, God, she should be in bodybuilding. There's no way that that girl should be winning a women's physique show because she's just like way, 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 way too big or way too striated or way too whatever. Um, but so I don't know. I just feel like I'm seeing less of that, and it's the figure girls. The figure girls seem to be getting so big now that they're bigger than a lot of the women's physique girls. And so I feel like the figure division is so competitive and there's so many girls in that division, they need to start pushing those girls up. Like when I'm looking at the figure girls and I'm like, holy smokes, like she could totally beat me in a women's physique competition. Why is she in figure and heels?
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, no offense to you, but I've had like 10 figure girls on where like they are bigger than you are, and you're big. Like, I'm not saying that you aren't, but I'm just saying like I've had figure girls on where I'm like, what? Why are you still in figure? Like,
And they're shredded, their backs are crazy, like, why are you in figure, and why are judges not telling you to go up? I mean, maybe or why do you continue to grow? Like, what are you growing into? If your mission isn't to go into women's physique, why do you continue to grow? Because you don't need to, the criteria doesn't require it.
when then you have those people. My little tiny pet peeve is that you have the people that compete in multiple divisions where it's just like, and the ones that I've had a ton of guests say this, and I agree with them completely. Like, if you win in the figure division and in the physique division, that means that the judges have done a terrible job because you should not be able to win in both. Like, the criteria should be such that like the physique and the figure look should be so different that there's no possible way, even if unless you're the only one that shows up for both divisions. But like I've heard, there've been multiple occasions where there's been shows where there's at least a dozen competitors, and the person who wins figure wins in physique, and it's like that should not be the case because your figure and physique look should not be the same. That's the one thing that I just don't get at times.
No, I mean, I agree, but I can also see where somebody's physique can be close enough. Like, I feel like for me,
Again,
I've been
these are not pro shows. These are like in the
an
amateur show. So that's a difference.
amateur
Like if it
for
happened at a
sure.
pro show, people would be up in arms and there'd be like mobs forming in the streets. But
Well, there is no, you can't do that. Like, you can't do both in pro. Um, but I think that I was kind of borderline. And the reason why we switched over to women's physique is because of my ability to get so dry, and because my skin gets so thin, you can see so much more definition. Um, Otherwise, I don't know. There's just certain criteria that, like, you're right. Pick one.
were you someone like even as a kid or like a young adult where like you were able to get like super dry and stuff, or is that something that you just discovered as a bodybuilder?
So I don't know. I've always been super vascular.
Okay.
So genetically, I get that from my dad, and my brothers like it too. So me and my brother kind of look like twins, even though I'm 3 years older, and we both have the exact same like vascularity, and we get it from my dad. And so once I get super lean, the vascularity is insane. And I don't know, a lot of people like it. I personally am very self-conscious. And once it's super hot, Ryan, when I go outside and it's hot, it's embarrassing. When I eat carbs, it's
Well, especially with the long hair too, because like I have hair that's it's not long, but like even I'm just drenched in sweat whenever I go outside. I can't imagine what it's like for someone with like actual long hair, how they deal with that. But this is also sport. It's a balancing act where you got to balance your femininity with the size, and you've done a perfect job of that. How have you been able to maintain it, and is how do you deal with that struggle? Because a lot of people unfortunately have that belief that like, oh, I got to choose one or the other, when that's not the case.
choose one or the other. What do you mean?
So they got to choose like, oh, I got to be more feminine, or I just got to be just like a brick shit house, basically.
So I um I kind of got to the point a couple years ago where I stopped giving a shit what people thought about me as far as whether or not they thought I was hot or whatever. I kind of got sick and tired of being treated a certain way. And so that's when I really got serious about my sport and I started focusing on myself and um really focusing on being an athlete. And that's when I became a brick shit house. And I really don't give a shit
Oh no,
whether or not
I'm
somebody.
also referring to like the judges too. Where, like there are judges they'll say like if a compare is like not feminine enough, you're like okay, this is too far.
Oh no, I want to be feminine on
Yeah.
stage.
No, that's what
Like
I meant. I
I
wasn't talking about like people's judgment of you.
oh
I'm talking about like
I'm
no, no.
I'm
I let
sitting
you
here
roll on
going
that one. No,
off.
I let you roll on that one. I was like, oh, does she actually think that I meant? No, I meant like because there's sometimes that people take things way too far, and then I'm talking like the judges even have to tell them and pull them aside and be like, yeah, you went a little too far in this one.
No, so here's what I always want to make sure is I always sorry about that by the way. I thought
No
that was
worries. I was like, God,
I
no.
was going in a completely different direction. No, I one thing I always want to make sure I do is bring femininity to the stage, and I feel like it's important for women to do that. I think that as female athletes in general, I don't think it should be our main focus to always prove that we're feminine, but I feel like if we're putting on a pretty sparkly suit, I feel like we need to like have the whole package. It has to all like the whole look needs to be there. It's not like we're putting on, a softball uniform and putting, black, what a stripes under our eyes. That's a different story. That when you're going out on a softball field,
You're
you're
giving me
not
ideas
trying
here.
you're not trying to look feminine when you're going out on a softball field, and that's right. But when you're going out on a stage with a sparkly bikini, hair, makeup, and lashes, and all that, you, I think you should absolutely be trying to bring a feminine look to the stage. And I always, me and my coach talk about it. Like that is always our goal is to maintain a feminine look.
I've always thought they just have them wear the baggiest clothes on stage, and it's like if you can tell that someone's still jacked wearing baggy clothes, then that should be the qualification right there.
I mean, that would make it so much easier, and I would love it if we didn't have to pose. If I could just go out there and be like,
Yeah, just go out there. Yeah, how is it going? Yeah,
"Hey, here we
yeah, yeah.
go."
Well, at least you don't have to do those figure poses anymore and wear those high heels though. So there's a plus there.
So here's a fun fact, I can't even put the heels on my feet anymore. My feet are so jacked from all the cardio. I can't even wear normal heels in real life.
Have you ever thought about putting your feet online then if they're so jacked?
Listen, people keep asking me for feet pics, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, here you go, buddy. Here's my bunion."
Oh god, yeah. I mean, I had one friend who she was going through medical school, and she's like, "I'm actually seriously considering just doing one of those feet things right now, just to pay for it." And I was like, "Hey, as long as they don't see your face, you're fine." So, but no, that's insane. As a guy who goes on walks all the time, yeah, I have not reached that level of jackedness in my feet, but I didn't even know that was possible for feet. Honestly, I thought feet were just one of those things where they would just get so like bunioned up that like they wouldn't even be able to see muscle once you walked enough on them. But yeah.
No, I mean, and they don't look that bad. It just I have arthritis in one of them and some bone spurs. And so I try to put on heels like to look nice for something, a wedding. And I couldn't even stand up in them. So yeah.
Well, I've been spending these last 45 minutes trying not to look at your shoulders because, good God. So, what the hell are you doing for shoulders? Because, Jesus Christ, Jessica, that's insane.
So I
Look at that.
just trained I just trained them last night,
That might have
actually.
something to do with it. Yeah.
So my
Jeez.
I trained my shoulders. I hit them one solid day, and then another day I incorporate them in with like triceps and chest. So basically, you like them?
That's ridiculous.
Thank you. It's shoulder day is my favorite day. Even though legs are probably my best, um, like my strongest feature, shoulders are my favorite day. Thank you. You just made my day, actually.
I had to go and give her confidence. Now, normally I just like to drag these people down to my level, but I every
No,
once in a
you
while I like
gotta
to compliment them.
you bring us down, you gotta build us back up.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
I
that's
do I
that's
do
true.
lots of different things for shoulders. If you want, I can send you a workout since you're just getting started. I love putting a hurting on you guys. I got another guy friend out in Richmond who I put through a shoulder workout one day. He hasn't called me to work out since.
What if you were just a bad person?
I'm not.
No, I know, but that's I no, I actually sent that to one because I did have a guest put me through a workout like 2 years ago, and they're like, "Why didn't you send me back?" And I was like, "Maybe you were just a bad person." That's how I responded to it. I was joking,
Yeah.
of course, but yeah, and she knew that I
What'd
was
she say?
joking. She laughed, but no, the reason was honestly because it was a. I drove like an hour, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll just stay. I'll say if you're ever in town, yeah, for sure. But and the thing with working out with you guys too is that like that's the funniest thing though is that like I I I sometimes do like twice the amount that the guest does, but they're like super jacked. But it's just because I'm 6'3" and just a bigger guy that I always find that
Right.
funny. Where it's like that person is just so ripped, but I'm like they're doing like 25-pound shoulder presses, and I'll do like 50 pounds, and then it's just yeah. I always kind of laugh at that. I give them a hard time with that, but then I'm like, but you look better in a mirror, so that's what really counts. So
But you're stronger.
exactly.
You're like one of those giant people. You know what? If we get you jacked, the world is it's gonna be a scary thing.
Well, like I told you, my fiance is 6'1", so
I can't wait for y'all's babies.
I don't want to unleash him on the world, but I guess I'm gonna have to.
Yes, you do.
So I have a friend who he's 6'6" and his wife is 6'2", I believe, and they've had two kids. The first kid is a year and a half old, and he's already 2.5 feet tall.
Oh my
The kid they did the genetic thing on him. And he's supposed to be 6'11", and the daughter was just born a couple of weeks ago, and she's so they have a picture where it's him holding the son at the zoo, and the kid's legs are dangling almost like to his kneecaps. Basically, it's these kids are freaks. Like they're freaks in a good way, but it's like Jesus, people. Like that should be a more thing. We should start forcing tall people to have kids together, then just to create the biggest freaks imaginable. Like I'm talking, like we're gonna get some
Yeah,
8-footers eventually.
seriously.
Yeah.
It'll change
Oh my
society.
God. Yeah. That's hey, there's that. But I mean, just on top of everything that you've done this last year and in your entire career, I mean, what has been one thing that you think, if you were to look back on your career, if it ended right now, which it's not going to end right now, what would be the one thing that you'd be most proud of right now in your bodybuilding career?
In my bodybuilding career. Right. You know what, Ryan? I think just starting. I think just when I turned 40 saying, I'm gonna do it. Let's go for it. That's probably what I'm most proud of. And then just that I kept going. And I will say this. Um, a lot of people have a hard time. I think a lot of people think that they can do a prep and do a show or many. And I hear a lot of girls say, yeah, I want to compete and I want to turn pro and I want to go to the Olympia before they've ever competed, before they've ever even done a prep. And I'm sitting there listening and I'm like, okay. And then, I just don't think that people realize how hard an actual prep is. And just kind of knowing that, you know, I'm built for this and I've done it and I've accomplished what I've accomplished. I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Just sticking with it too is the hardest thing for that so many people don't realize. I mean, it's I'm not gonna say it's easy to get started, but once you get your foot in, and especially once you see those beginner gains, which usually last you for a couple of months, where you feel like you're God's gift to the world, and then reality sets in. But I mean, this is also a sport of extreme body dysmorphia, and I'm not gonna lie, I even suffered from it when I was in really good shape. But how do you deal with that, and has it gotten easier for you as the years have gone on, or is it still just as hard as it was when you first got started?
Body dysmorphia. So it doesn't, I don't think it gets easier. I think what's happening now is I'm realizing how ridiculous it is. I've said this a lot this past year that like, you know, this sport is so hard because as much as I work out when I'm not in prep, I mean outside of prep, like we're talking and bulking and off season. Um, as much as I work out and do cardio, I should be able to put on a bikini at any given point of the year. If it's snowing outside, I should be able to put on a bikini and a pair of Uggs and walk outside in the snow. And that's never the case. Like typically I am like fluffy or, building muscle, but I'm still doing like an hour and a half of cardio a day and I'm lifting an hour and a half, way more than the average person who looks good in a bikini. And so I feel like that's something that, you know, bothers me about this sport, from my perspective and my life, me personally. I don't think everyone else experiences that. Um, I happen to like to eat. I like my cheat meals. I am not one of those people that is like, never likes to, eat chocolate or sugar. So, it does kind of, add up sometimes. But, I think that what I'm going to do, this time around is make sure that I pay more attention to that and keep my finger on the pulse a little bit more just so that I'm happier with my body and where I'm at. Because at the end of the day, I'm putting the work in. I don't want to ever not be happy with the way that I look when I'm working so hard.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing for me is like I could take my shirt off right now going to a beach or whatever and be more comfortable in my body than I was when I was at my best shape when I was, like I think I'm at like 205 right now, and I was at probably like 175, 180 when I was at like my shreddest. I feel more comfortable doing that now than when I was at my shreddiest now, just because that was when I was in that mindset of like, oh my god, I'm gonna be judged and stuff like that. And it's like no one gives, no one cares, like no one
Nobody
cares,
cares.
nobody cares. And if they do, that's weird. Like that's if they single handedly point you out. But again, Jessica, I have to deal with like look at the pale skin right here. So that's another thing that I have to factor in though, where it's like I don't want the sun blinding people, like reflecting off of me and it being like a like a whole thing. So that might be part of it too, where it's like, and I could be out like I was on a 2 hour walk in the direct sunlight yesterday, and I didn't even get nothing, no tan, nothing, not even burnt. It's just
Not even a sunburn.
I have gotten, believe me, I get sunburns, but like if I put the sunscreen on, like doesn't have, but like I don't even get a tan anymore. Like when I was a kid, I at least got that farmer's tan, like on your arms and on your like neck and stuff. But even now, it's just like, so it looks like I spend my entire time in a dungeon basically with this skin tone. But it's like, no, I go out and do stuff, but it's just,
Yeah,
I don't know. Hey, at least, hey, at least if it does get bright enough, I can be almost like see through. I can be almost invisible. So there is that at
right.
least. But I mean, at least in the nighttime, people can still see me though. They'll see that
You
little
glow.
dot, in the distance. So, yep, everyone. So it's the make fun of Ryan time of the podcast, which I really, really appreciate. No, but again, Jessica. So when we do have you on again, so I didn't ask you this last time, and it came into play. But when I do have you on next time, and I ask you what's one body part that you've improved on the most, what would your ideal answer be when I next have you on?
My lower lats.
We're getting specific now. Okay.
Yes, because that's what the head judge told me to work
Okay.
on. He said you need to work on your lower lats, and he was very specific.
Isn't that crazy how with bodybuilding, just certain body types just get so specific in what they want? It's like you would never ask a person in their normal life, like, what do you train for lower lats or something like that? Like it's,
I
yeah.
know. Yeah, but I mean, my lower lats, I think that's going to make my waist look smaller because my waist looked pretty thick on stage.
Oh my god.
It
You
looked pretty
bodybuilders and your
thick.
criticisms. It's like, yeah, I look more shredded than 99.99999% of the planet, but you know what? My waist looked a little too big.
It looked a little wide. It needs to be a little bit more.
I mean, and again, I've talked to Olympia winners and they say the same thing, and I'm just like, God, that just to be in your brain, I would not want for a day just to. But again, that's why you are the way you are, though. Like
Well,
if you
and
didn't have that
Ryan,
self
it
talk to you, you
matters.
would, yeah, exactly. If you didn't have that self talk, you wouldn't have pushed yourself to that limit.
Yeah, and you know what? The way that we look at our physiques is actually more like a it's a job. It's not like we're beating ourselves up. I mean, the judges, it's part of the sport. If I were just, randomly judging myself like in real life, there'd be a problem there.
Going up to
But
random strangers, hey, what do my back lat, what do my bottom lats look like? What do my does my do my traps look a little bit huge here? What's going on, guys? So
how many points do I get for for my waist right
yeah,
now?
yep. Well, no, I mean, you guys do that with your body the same way I do about like podcasts and editing them and stuff. So I get it at least on that, where I'm just so anal on just like getting everything perfect and getting it right, especially when it comes down to, I mean, and this is obviously something that I can't control. Like if all of a sudden we were to have like a power outage or something like that, which, knock on wood, that doesn't happen, because we did have one a couple days. I mean, the only time that's ever happened, I did have one guest where we were literally like where we're at right now. We're like a minute away from ending it, and we had a power outage and nothing saved that I recorded of. So the entire
Oh
thing went to.
shoot.
So again, everyone, that's why that happened like 3 months ago, and that was the first time that's ever happened. So it got me scared for like the next 5 episodes I did after that. Like I was just like constantly just like looking out, being like, is anything going to happen now or something like that? And it got to a point where I was like stopping the recording every 10 minutes and then just pressing it again just so I could have it that saved. But
Uh,
oh my God, yeah, it's crazy. But again, Jessica, I cannot thank you enough for coming back on and giving us an update. And do you have any other shows planned for this year? Are you taking the rest of the year to grow, or what's that looking like?
so I wasn't sure until after I competed this last weekend, and I have decided to do the Rising Phoenix at the end of August. So I'm real excited about that. So I'm about 5 weeks out today.
5 weeks out. Hey, at least when you're doing other shows, you have that look at least when you're 5 weeks out. So how is your prep a little bit easier then, now that you already like somewhat have a stage look in your, as opposed to like when you first like start your other prep? Is it just easier to maintain it?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you,
I mean, it's like I'm
I'm
still in
asking
prep.
you a softball here at the end, because if you would have said no, I'd be like, oh God.
Oh, it's definitely easier because it's basically like I just got a freaking week off and I'm still in prep. And I've done a few saunas this week to like manage the water weight, and I'm gonna be fine. It's gonna be fun.
Well, we'll see how she does there. And again, everyone, go and give her a follow on her Instagram page. Buyer beware. You will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But again, Jessica, thank you so much for coming back on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, again, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.